All right, hello guys. We are on to the final Rings of Power stream that will ever be done on this channel. I want to say before we get into this stream, because I say this in pretty much every stream I feel like now when it comes to Rings of Power, but this is going to be a very negative stream. There is going to be very few positives, if any, in this stream. And I want to say, if you like Rings of Power, I'm happy. I'm happy you find something that entertains you or you enjoy. This is not going to be the stream for you. This is going to be a very, like I've said, negative stream. And I'm just going to, I guess, leave it at that. Because if you guys have watched previous live streams, any videos talking about Rings of Power, you know where this is going, okay? Made a community post last night. It was quite literally, I don't think I've been as angry as I was last night since season 8 of Game of Thrones. It wasn't as bad, but it was still there. Hi Hugo, hi Jesse. Insert Count Dookie meme. I was looking forward to this live. Yes, a full mental breakdown. Hi Evie, how are you? Hi Matthew. Wasn't paying much attention when I watched it, to be honest. I'm glad, Jesse. The reason I'm also going to put this in there at the beginning of the stream, just for people that want to know in the future. I will not be reviewing Rings of Power, season 2. I am not a big fan of season 1. For a lot of reasons, I just didn't think it worked from a cinematic experience, like just plot, the writing, dialogue, nothing really worked for me. And then for the other side of it, the lore side of it, it didn't really work on that side of it either. And there are just blatant, obvious things they do in these episodes to piss off book fans that just bother me. So I'm not going to spend the 4 to 5 hours every week on reviewing the episode, watching the episode, taking notes for the episode. I will not be doing that in whenever they have another season. But yeah. Hold on. So Hugo, you loved it. I'm happy you liked it, Hugo. This episode has changed my perception of Rings of Power. Hugo, why? How has your opinion changed? I'm actually curious. They reduced the creation of the Elven Rings Century to a single episode. I'm going to talk about it when we get there, but the ending of the episode was, with the Elven Rings, how they were made, is vastly different and changes pretty much everything that went behind those. So the whole thing here is that when the Elven Rings are made, they're basically just made by Celebrimbor. He kind of sees what Sauron's doing with the other rings, and they are not touched by Sauron. Right? And in this episode, Sauron pretty much basically makes the rings for them. Like, yes, he wasn't like there when they were actually made, but he literally told them exactly how to make it. And all of these things. And Sauron knows they are going to make these rings. I don't know. How can anyone claim to be bored from this series? Now answer me specifically, you, Eric. Hugo, I'm not sure if you're being sarcastic or not, okay? I'm not sure if you're being sarcastic or not. But here's what I'll say. The problem here is, how am I bored with it? I don't care about any of the characters outside of the dwarves and like Elrond to some degree. Even Elrond, it's kind of like maybe. So I don't care about any of the characters. I know none of the characters have any type of risk to them at all, because they've just shown me that there's no tension. Any injuries in this series can be fixed or just shrugged off, so there's no tension with majority of the action scenes or scenes that are supposed to build tension. So because I don't buy into the characters, I don't buy into any tension or emotion they're trying to set up, it just falls flat for me, right? And that is subjective. I know that is a subjective argument because people will like these characters. People will, maybe not Galadriel, but people will like other characters like the Hardfoots, things like that, which would make things more likable. I also don't like that they made the stranger basically Gandalf. They didn't say Gandalf, but he's Gandalf. And this drove me nuts. Okay. It drove me nuts the way Gandalf is the stranger, right? Because they continuously, the entire episode, kept ripping off Peter Jackson's, like, the movies, or they would quote stuff from the books from the Lord of the Rings. Stop. Can you make your own dialogue? Like, I don't need to be constantly reminded of a better trilogy or anything better than what you're doing. And then they do dialogue. Okay, we'll get there. You know, I gotta stop. We gotta bring it back. Gotta bring it back. Jesse brings up a good point. This is a good point to bring off at the beginning of the episode. Isildur, the last time we see Isildur in episode 7, he has a kind of house cave in on him. It's on fire. It's directly in Mordor. We don't see Isildur in this entire episode. And I'm assuming a decent amount of time passes because we see Galadriel go from one side of the continent to the other. That's stupid in its own right. But, so I would have to assume at least a month has passed. At least a month has passed. Right? So, and this is something I don't have to worry about because I'm not going to review season 2. But either Isildur's dead, which is the most logical reason, right? Because, again, he is in Mordor. There's orcs everywhere. There's, like, all of these, like, there is no way in hell Isildur should be alive or getting out of Mordor, right? So, Isildur logically should be dead. But she's not, or he's not. He's not dead. There's gonna be some bullshit reason where he's fine, which, whatever. Unless he is actually dead. Unless they literally do not understand who Isildur is somehow. I don't know. By the way, you guys are talking about Halbrand. I actually like Halbrand. I just don't think he makes sense. I think if you look at some of the past actions of Halbrand / Sauron, it doesn't make a lot of sense. Maybe it's just me, because we'll talk about it later on when the reveal is given. But I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. I don't know. We'll see. Let me go back, because I went on kind of a rant there. I know this is gonna be a negative stream, but before we get into it, we need a moment of silence for Robbie Coulter. Yeah, moment of silence, guys. Moment of silence for Hagrid. A very big character from my childhood. When I was a lot younger, I really liked the Harry Potter movies. I wouldn't say I like them anymore. I've read I'm okay with them, but yeah, he was one of the better actors and an amazing character and really did a great performance of Hagrid. So, moment of silence for our boy Hagrid, or Robbie, whichever you want to say. All right, thank you, lads. Thank you, lads. Sauron flirting with Galadriel, yeah. 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 Although I can't avoid laughing when I think all the memes about Halbrand being Sauron were right all along. Well, the thing is, it was actually leaked. I'm pretty sure it was leaked. I'd watched a YouTuber who had, like, made the theory that it was Halbrand, or, like, just basically, like, passively was like, yeah, it's Halbrand is Sauron. And I was just like, yeah, that makes sense. And then, then I started looking at his character, I'm like, yeah, it makes sense the way they're taking his character and all that. Agreed, Jesse. That would have been cool. And this is the problem I have with the ending, is that, so Sauron is there to, like, help make the 3 elven rings. How is he ever going to make the other rings? This is going to be something where Celebrimbor just makes them all by himself, and Sauron just takes them all. Is Sauron going to make... I don't know. Like, and I just don't care, because it's so far from the source material at this point that I really don't care. Top 3 characters in the series that I have an inkling of attachment for is Durin, Elrond, and Elendil. Yeah, I'd say it's about right. I'd say it's about right. Stranger's Gandalf for sure. Yeah, and that's really stupid because I gave them credit. I gave them credit because there's a lot of contradicting evidence on whether the Blue Wizards came in the Second Age or the Third Age. Because we have this, like, I think it's a letter that Tolkien writes where the Blue Wizards actually could have came in the Second Age instead of the Third Age. So I was like, okay, maybe they're gonna go off of that, and like this will be one of the Blue Wizards. And then they completely leaned into it's Gandalf, and Gandalf doesn't come to the Third Age, which completely breaks everything going on in the Second Age, just completely. I like it. It like breaks what the whole purpose of the Wizards coming to Middle. It actually blows my mind. Like, do one Google search. Do one of the events and get us a quick summary of the Second Age. You could have wrote a better plot than this. Like, I'm going to talk about the end, the way with the characters they've built and kind of how the plot was going, how I would have made a better story than they did, because I had a lot of time to kind of process what they did. And it literally, they made the most convoluted story possible. I agree with you, Evie, on Elrond and Durin's friendship. She said it took 6 days ride from Mordor to Eregion. Okay, so let's put this into perspective, right? I'm not exactly sure how many days it took Boromir to get to Rivendell, but I know it was at least a month. It was at least, I'm pretty sure it was longer than that. Let's look up how long did it take Boromir to get to Rivendell and Fellowship. Boromir, and he came from, again, Minas Tirith, Osgiliath, that area, to Rivendell. It's kind of similar to the journey that Galadriel would have taken, right? So, Boromir, how long did journey take? 110 days. Now, granted, Boromir, okay, did have some setbacks because of, the Gap of Rohan and all that. But, again, 110 days. Yeah, let's leave it at that. I don't mind Halbrand. That's kind of how I am. I don't mind that he was Sauron, but they could have done it in a much better way. I do agree with you, Hugo. It makes sense that Sauron should be stronger than Galadriel, right? I mean, think about it. Galadriel at this point, she doesn't have like a ring of power or anything. Like, she should be able to easily overpower her. Gandalf will be wandering with Nori now. And that whole plot line was stupid to me, the way they left it. I'm just like, who cares? This has nothing to do with the Second Age. Nothing. Nothing. I don't know. Why are we even talking about the show? J-Lord, trust me. I'm finishing off the show because I started reviewing it in episode 1. I'm finishing it off, and I'm never doing a stream about it again. I think you might have been mistaken. I looked at Tolkien Gateway, and it said 110 days. He sets out from Minas Tirith to Rivendell. Boromir lost his horse in Tharbad and traveled the rest of the way on foot. The journey took 110 days. They must have had one of the Maras, like Shadowfax. Forgive me if that's misspelled. Well, what is Sauron before he crafts the One Ring? A sorcerer? Oh, God, hold on. More or less, yes, Matthew, but yeah. Let's just go with the short answer, yes. Because I gotta start actually reviewing the episode, or we're gonna be here all day. All right, so the opening shot is the stranger. The stranger's like sheltering in some rain or something. We're told he is in Mirkwood, which I'm like, okay, that makes sense with where the Hardfoots were in the previous. Were they in the previous episode? Yeah, I think they're in the previous episode. Right? Yeah. And then we just have like this 2-minute scene where it's just him following this apple or looking at the apple. and trying to figure out if he's good or bad. And I'm just like, we've already treaded this. We've already talked about this. Why are we continuously going on this? Like, I get it. He has some indecision on what's going on in his head. We don't need more of the same scenes that we've already seen. Like, okay, let's continue. So, spots someone which on the outside of it looks like Nori, and I'm sitting here going, I was literally about ready to type. I'm like, how the hell did Nori like catch him instantly? Like, and instantly, like, so it isn't Nori. The priest shapes into Nori. And I'm sitting here like, this is going to be a reoccurring theme throughout this entire review about the priests. How did they do this? Where did they learn this? What? You can't introduce things, or if you do introduce things, pay them off later. Not only do we have literally no idea how these priests learn this, we know that they're from Rune, apparently. We have no idea how they learned how to shapeshift, how to have fire basically coming out of their hands, when that's not really been a power of any of even the wizards. I mean, we literally basically get a scene not in the book, Fellowship of the Ring, where Gandalf's like, I can't just, be like a flamethrower, basically, or something like that. When like they're getting attacked by the wolves. And yet this priest does it. So where did that come from? That's never explained. We're never told how that happens. We're not told why that happens. We're just supposed to accept it. So yeah. They caught up to him real quick, by the way. So we also did see the really cringy like teleportation scene or whatever by these priests last episode. So I guess they teleported to him. I guess they quick traveled. They did a little fast travel and they got to him. Sure, why not? And then they call him Sauron, and I'm sitting here like, I really hope this isn't Sauron. It's not, but I was sitting there while watching the episode, and I'm like, dear God, please tell me this isn't Sauron. And it wasn't, so that's good. It was a little bit of a misdirection that I don't think anyone really believed, but with how bad the writing's been, I half believed it for a second. And yeah, so then that scene concludes, and we go back to our favorites, Galadriel, and Halbrand is just kind of like slunk over the horse. And I quite literally, I'm just like thinking about this from Galadriel's point of view. The dude has basically been impaled in his stomach, and you have him on a horse where he's lying straight on his stomach onto the horse. And apparently they've been riding for, we'll go off of the show's version, 7 days, which just doesn't make any sense. He should be dead. Okay? In Galadriel's thought process, we know he's Sauron, but through, like, Galadriel, is this not a red flag to you? Like, this doesn't make any sense. Like, I don't know. Also, I thought they were going to Lindon, but they apparently weren't, so that was a little questionable as well. I don't know. Let me look at chat. Can we talk about the awful song at the end of the credits? I'm going to be honest, Jesse. As soon as I saw the credits pop up, I didn't even listen. So I don't even know how bad it was. But who is Eminem supposed to represent? I couldn't tell you, Hugo, because we don't get any character development into them at all. I think they were just women from Rune who worship Morgoth/Sauron. The mouth of Sauron was just a man who was a powerful sorcerer. So were the ringers in their time. Yeah, we're basically just supposed to come up with it on our own, which is something you almost never do in television or movies. It's a very big no-no, because then we are having to fill in the gaps of them. Now, it's okay to have some mystery, right? So things like The Purple Wedding, which I did a video on, I think it was, yesterday? Really loved doing that video. It was a fun video, but there's a lot of what was it? I'm trying to say I can't say the word. There's a lot of mysteriousness around it, right? And that's okay, right? Because there's a lot of ideas of how it could have happened logically that we just haven't been told yet. This situation is, they just didn't want to tell us because it was a convenient way of adding some sort of tension to the Harfoots, because they were dead and lifeless. They had nothing going for them. Nothing happened. Okay, let's think about what happened in 8 episodes with the Harfoots. Okay, I'm going to talk about this at the end of the episode as well, or end of the episode review. Stranger falls out of the sky, meets up with the Harfoots, struggles if he's good or bad. They have a lot of confrontations for a while. They move around. By the end of the season, the dude has figured out he's good, and him and Nori are going off to Rune. And that's what literally happened in 8 episodes. Like, think about the early seasons of Game of Thrones, where every scene mattered. If you missed a scene, you would be confused later on in the story, right? So, spoilers for anybody that hasn't watched Game of Thrones, which you all have. But think about the scenes where you have Ned figuring out who, you know, who the children are, basically, like whose children they are, right? Jaime and Cersei's. If you miss certain scenes, like say you're going to the bathroom, you're just not paying attention, you're going to be confused because every scene mattered, right? You couldn't watch, like, there are episodes in this season, and this is shocking because it's a small season, and it would not matter. Like, you could come back and be like, oh, okay, whatever. Like, I don't know. Aren't they elves? I didn't notice, Yuko. I didn't care. I'm not sure. I never saw their ears, to be honest. Yeah, fair. How are you, Casper? Good night as well. The show is explicitly playing with the audience by spending 7 episodes hinting that maybe the Sauron or the stranger was evil, and then have Eminem call him Sauron. Never had a red herring been so much on the face. Yeah, it's just, I don't know. Like, my thing was, I thought for it to make sense with that plot line, it was a blue wizard, even though it still didn't make sense because where was the other blue wizard? But I was willing to accept that. Like, if they would have told me, okay, he's a blue wizard by the end, I would have been like, okay, that's fine, right? There's some textual evidence to support that. That makes a bit more sense. But then for them to have it be Gandalf, who his whole mission was basically to fight off Sauron and all these things, and that's why he was sent here with the other wizards. Why the hell would they send him to Middle Earth where he can't remember anything? Like, it hurts my brain. It really hurts my brain. There's no in-universe reason for everybody to believe Gandalf was evil and constantly questions morality and mistake him for Sauron. They just did this to keep... Yeah, I agree. That's the actual sad thing about this season. Nothing actually happened in the season other than Harandir escaped to fight the orc with the Southlanders, and Galadriel convinced Numenor to send ships, and Sauron reveal, I guess. It's just bad. It's just bad. Jesse, I'm not sure if he was pretending to be in a story. I know he was bringing gifts and stuff like that. Let's look. Let's look. Let's do a quick little, because he claims he's the Lord of Gifts. I don't know if he actually specifically says he's in his story. It doesn't say it in here on the thing I was looking at, but chat, if you want to answer that, go ahead. I'm not sure on the answer to that question. In the books, Sauron took the identity of an immortal elf and pretended to be an emissary from Valinor. He spent centuries befriending the Ents before he made them craft the rings. Makes sense. Makes sense, Raphael. At this point, do you think they'll do season 2 Rings of Power videos, or do you think you'll do? No, Jim, I will not be covering season 2 Rings of Power or anything like that. I may at some point do like a video like before season 2 of like saying why I'm not going to cover it, just like to update people. But no, I will not be doing any type of Rings of Power type content outside of maybe a video next week, kind of summing up the thoughts of this video or this stream. But no, I really will not be covering that. So sorry if any of you guys wanted me to do that. I will not be in my opinion, wasting my time with that show. I hope they cut the minor characters every season. I'd like to never see the Southlanders or the Harfoots again. I agree. So, like, this is how, okay, since we're getting on to this point already, right? This is how I would have done season 1, using their own formula, using the mostly broad plots of what they wanted to accomplish, right? So, the first thing I would have done, right, if we're looking at, if you're going to make Halbrand Sauron, right? Don't have them even go to Numenor. They don't need to go to Numenor, right? If we're going to just say, fuck the actual Sauron, like, plot, have it be where, like, Numenor is its own thing. Like, you know how the Harfoots in this season were their own thing, where they didn't really interact with any of the other stories. They were their own separate thing. Have that be Numenor. And we don't have to see them a lot, right? We can have a scene or two of them every episode and develop things like, what is Numenor about? What are the themes of Numenor? Talk about immortality. And that's the thing. That's what's so goddamn frustrating, is that this episode started to do that. They started to talk about, you know, whether that be with Pharazôn, whether that be with Elendil and all them. They start to talk about the idea of death and how no one can ever achieve immortality of men. They started to talk about that. Why is that being talked about in this episode? We should not be getting exposition and or plot building at the last episode of the season. So that's stuff that they were trying to do in this episode should have been layered throughout the entire season. We don't need Isildur's daughter. Get rid of her character. She doesn't matter, okay? Get rid of Pharazôn's son that doesn't matter, right? Get rid of all these things that don't matter, right? And focus on what makes Numenor interesting and build up that conflict, right? And you don't even have to have them really do anything, right? Just have it to where, like, the end of season 1, like, Pharazôn takes over. Or we see that Miriel is losing power, right? She's part of the faithful and all this, and she's losing support because of that. You don't even have to have Pharazôn take over at the end of season 1. Just have it where it's like, you can see where the plot's going. Maybe something happens at the end of the season that's a little spicy in that Numenor camp. But that's all you have to do. So then you can have, okay, again, this is my problem, is Galadriel just doesn't need to be in the show. She serves, like, no real purpose other than to drive the story forward. If we just actually went off what happens, she doesn't need to be in here, right? And what we can do is, if we're going to have Halbrand be the Southland's king and all this stuff, have it where Galadriel, like, very similar to in episode 1, she's out trying to find things for Sauron, and eventually, and you can have kind of the same type thing where she discovers that there's the symbol, and that leads her to Mordor, or the Southlands at this point. And you have her kind of looking around, and she's starting to see signs of the orcs, and you can kind of still have the Arondir plot, kind of, where you have these Southlands humans and all that, and have it where she meets up with Halbrand, and one way or another, she finds this crest or whatever, and figures out, okay, this guy could be the king to the Southlands. Now, why this would be important that she finds it here and not in some place like Numenor or something like that is because a big plot hole that pops up is we find out that when she looks through the records that there are no heirs to the Southland crown or whatever, right? She could have just as easily found that out in Numenor. Like, you're telling me she can find, like, the crest sign, but she couldn't find the lineage type thing? Obviously convoluted, obviously doesn't make any sense. So have it where she's exploring out and she just, you know, she sees this crest, she recognizes it and talks to Halbrand, and they kind of figure out that, oh, he is the heir to the Southlands or whatever, right? And again, this keeps up with Galadriel being a main character. It keeps up with her being, like, our main protagonist, and have them continue on with what was going on. So the orcs are trying to take over and all of these things, and don't have it be by the end of it that, oh, Mount Doom becomes Mount Doom. That's no. Just have it to where, you know, the orcs are trying to get the men out of their land, right? And have it to where the elves aren't helping, right? Maybe they're involved with their own things. Let's just go with the plot they bet. Even though it's stupid, we got to keep kind of the main things that they want to set up. That the elves are fading. Gilgalad is kind of off doing his own thing. So there's no help here for the Southlands, right? They're on their own. They have to fend for themselves. And let's say by the end of this, they lose. Okay, so they lose, and they lose all their homes, and they have to retreat, which is similar to what happens, but doing it in a different way, where they're just overwhelmed. There's too many orcs. Halbrand and Galadriel, they got to retreat. And what ends up happening is that instead, we see that Galadriel and talks to Halbrand and says, we should go back to Lindon, try to rally support from the elves to try and take your homeland back. And with doing that, you can then proceed. And this should all happen within like the first 4 to 5 episodes, so that the rest of the episodes can be built towards establishing Halbrand's position and how he slowly makes a kind of connection with Celebrimbor and all of that. Right? So then it doesn't feel as rushed. It doesn't feel like, oh, Halbrand's manipulating the elves in about 20 minutes of screen time. Like, you have a little bit more time to breathe. And I wouldn't, at this point, right, I would have them start kind of making the rings, or at least coming up with the idea. Like, I think the end of season 1 in this format that they wanted to do could have been making the plans for the rings, but not actually making the rings. Because, again, I think it's too fast. It just didn't work. So that is a way that you can get Halbrand into Eregion, Lindon, all of these places that he needs to be without making the plot feel forced, right? Because another problem is, well, Sauron or Halbrand has already been in Numenor. So is he going to go back to Numenor to then break up Numenor? But Muriel knows he's not who he says he is now, and Galadriel will tell her that. So how does this work now? And that's the problem with that. House of the Stag. I will check out Rings of Power soon. Do you think I'll enjoy this show as someone who is not familiar with the lore at all? I know Sauron, Galadriel, and Elrond, but that is it, Elma. Personally, I don't think you'll like it. I don't think, and I'm just going away from lore. Like, in my review that I haven't really been talking a lot about the actual review in this episode, but the show does not function within its own continuity. And like, if you look at things like Lord of the Rings, right? So the actual trilogy, they made changes from the books, right? They made changes, but they kept the overall themes kind of the same. But it was a different kind of story when you look at certain things. This story does not function. Like, I personally, House of the Stag, would not waste my time with it. It's I don't know. Like, if you're a casual viewer, maybe you'll enjoy it. I think House of the Stag, if you don't pay attention to it as much, like if you go into it like a Marvel movie, right? If you go into it like a Marvel movie and you're just like trying to be entertained, you may like it. I don't know. I'm coming at it from I'm someone that cares a lot about continuity, that cares about logical storytelling, and this lacks all of those. So, let me go back up. I genuinely have fun trashing the show. Fair enough, Hugo. I don't enjoy it. I don't enjoy being negative all the time on things like this, and it's something that truly bothers me on how they've treated something that's very important to me, and something that as I've grown up, I've really gotten attached to the series or the world that Tolkien has built. And I will never claim to be a Tolkien lore master, because I'm not. Right? I know a good amount of the general plot, more or less, but I will never be someone that goes in depth with it, because I don't know if I have the brain power to be both knowing a lot of A Song of Ice and Fire stuff with lore there's too many things. But I genuinely, and this is the thing that really bothers me, is that for doing these streams, right? And when I started reviewing Rings of Power before, I tried to refresh myself on the knowledge of what happens in the Second Age, and actually do some homework, research, what went into it. So I knew kind of what I was talking about. Right? And for the showrunners to obviously tell me that they have no fucking clue what's going on, they do not care about the source material. They straight up poke fun at you if you've actually like studied the material there. They literally at some point, right? They completely abandoned the Anatar plot, and Halbrand's like, "Oh, I bring gifts." Like, shut the fuck up. Please stop talking. Like, he said that, and I was like, wow, we're really going to give a little Easter egg to a much better story that you could have done that you chose not to because you think you're better than Tolkien at writing. I don't, and it's just, there's so many things, right, that they changed that were so unnecessary. Like, yes, they had to change things, and I've said this multiple times. They had to change things. They had to add things to it because there just needs to be things there, right? There's not enough, as in, like, there's enough to write the story, but when you look at how the Second Age is documented, it's not like a cohesive story. It's not like The Fellowship of the Ring. It's not like The Hobbit. You kind of have to craft it to be a story, you know? We don't know how characters are feeling. We don't know a lot of their personalities. So you had to do things, but they just, even the things they were given, they just completely ignored. If they focus on Sauron in season 2, maybe they save the series. Also, fire the woke writers in these. I agree. Okay, I feel bad about saying stuff like this, but genuinely, whoever was writing this, whoever reviewed this and said this was good enough to be on the screen should be fired. They have no business being in like a $2 billion project. I don't know. Do you think you'll get back into making Middle-earth content? If I have time, I will. I do like talking about Middle-earth content. Middle-earth content to me depends on what I'm talking about. There are things I'm very interested in, and there are other things I'm not so interested in. So, for instance, I want to make a Witch King / Agmar video because Witch King has always been one of my favorite villains in like any media. And I find his individual story very interesting. I like a lot of the villains of Middle-earth. I'm not as big on like the hero stories, but I really like a lot of the villains that he's crafted. The lore has so much content to portray and much better than what is presented in the series. I think they changed unnecessarily, and that hurt. Agreed. Probably realized their show was shit last minute and hired new writers for the last episode in season 2. Maybe. I don't know. I'm praying for the leaks to remain true in season 2 for Adar to be revealed as Galadriel's brother. How are they already getting leaked for season 2? That makes no sense to me. Why would elves even keep track of petty kingdoms and of men far away? I don't know. I just feel like the elves would just, you know, they would just keep records. It's kind of their thing, you know. Galadriel could be one main character, but there should be others. Isildur should be one, and Celebrimbor should be another, not Elrond. I agree. I think Elrond's main use to it should have been introducing us into Gil-galad and all of that. By the way, I will say Gil-galad's portrayal is just like how they wrote him as a character is just terrible. He's supposed to be the greatest elf king of all time. This really heroic figure. He's supposed to be portrayed more like Elendil, really, and he just isn't. So, yeah. Hold on. Let me go back up. Adar being the brother will be... Okay, sorry. Yeah. I get it. My guy grinding on a Friday? We always are, sadly, for Rings of Power. Oh, God. Why are you letting the show manipulate you on a Sunday? Go watch Succession or something? What? Wait, what? I'm confused on your statement there, Ian. But I will say I'm very excited for House of the Dragon Episode 9. And for actually being able to sit down and watch something I enjoy. So I will be very happy with that. As much as I, talk negatively sometimes about it, because I want it to be good. I want it to be as best as it possibly can. I really do enjoy the show. Um. Oh no, Hugo. I agree. I know. I know. I know people enjoy pure spectacle. I know this because that is the only reason Marvel is still somehow in business or whatever. And I've seen this with how if you go back on this channel, very far back, me and my friend did a review of Spider-Man No Way Home, and we talked a lot about the plot inconsistencies, the logical fallacies, the things that just didn't make sense in that movie, and why us as viewers could not accept the big payoffs, and which was really cool. It was really fun. Like we even said in the video, this was a fun movie, right? Like at least it was a fun movie. Rings of Power was not a fun time to watch. No Way Home is inherently a bad movie to me because it is just not logical. And that's kind of how I am as a movie. I guess movie and show person. I am someone that really likes continuity and that likes logic. I like my stories to make sense. I like to have things feel earned and have emotional payoffs. I like to see characters that are real, that we can see their emotions. That's something why I really love A Song by Some Fire, right? Because a lot of that is kind of built into those core values of storytelling. That I am kind of the opposite, Hugo. I would consider myself quite an expert in A Song of Ice and Fire, but less in Tolkien. I remember seeing how Rob Bashit, book readers, and called the Tolkien fan base racist for not liking their show. Yeah, well, that's what happens when your show's bad and you sunk $2 million or $2 billion into it. I kind of like Melkor too, but that's my thing. I like all the villains. I like the villains. They're all really cool, in my opinion. And I don't like Celebrimbor's casting or Pharazôn. I thought Pharazôn was fine. I really didn't like Celebrimbor. I don't like his, like, he's just his haircut. Like, it's the problem with the elves. Why do we all have One Direction haircuts? I just don't understand. Is No Way Home the one in Europe or the one with Tobey Maguire? It's the newest one. All right, so we get to, you know, so are they in a Region or are they in Linden, guys? Like when, so they're in a Region then, right? Because this confused me when I was watching the episode. I was like, wait. They said Galadriel literally said she was going to Linden in the previous episode. So why was she in a Region? That kind of confused me. So she's going to a Region, and there's another awkward riding horse scene. Why? Why do they keep doing this? It looks so awkward. It looks bad. Just stop. Stop. Okay, so it was a Region. Okay, good. Toby is the OG Spider-Man. Toby is a very good Spider-Man. I am more of an Andrew Garfield Spider-Man type of guy. And don't say it's because of No Way Home, because it's not. I have always been looked at as a crazy person for liking Andrew Garfield Spider-Man. I like, the one thing I like about the Amazing Spider-Man movies is they really portray the downsides of being Spider-Man and the emotional conflict that would come with that. And I really like how they kind of ground the characters a lot into reality, even though, you know, it's still Spider-Man, it's still crazy shit's going on. These feel like real people, and I think Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone do a fantastic job in those two movies. I wish they would have got another movie, and there would have been better writing because there were things that were bad in those movies. But yeah. So scene 3, we have Elrond and Celebrimbor, right? And yeah, she made it there in 6 days. Doesn't make any sense, Gryffindor. I'm just saying. Doesn't make any sense, but whatever. And they're talking about how to multiply Mithril and how they failed and all these things. And then Galadriel gallops in. All right, so this is where I am going to get to some of my big gripes on the dialogue. So let's set the stage here. So let's say that on this YouTube channel, right? Let's say I disappeared for a year and a half. You guys, this is the last stream. You never saw me again. And I came back. and it's a year and a half. I just randomly boot up a stream. It's not even a Song of Ice and Fire. It's not Rings of Power. It's like Star Wars or something, right? And you guys asked me, what happened? Where have you been? And my response was something random, right? And I didn't say anything like to you guys, right? And then I said, what happened to you guys? Does that seem like good dialogue writing? Because this is literally what happens. So Elrond walks in, or not Elrond, Galadriel walks in. Elrond asks, what happened? And Galadriel goes, yeah, he took a lance to the chest. I don't think that's what Elrond meant, Galadriel. You are supposed to be in Valinor. He hasn't seen you, and I have no idea because the time's all over the fucking place in this show. It doesn't make any sense, okay? The Elves heal Halbrand, cool, whatever. Nobody questions how this dude is alive. Not a single one. Not a single person here asks, how does this guy ride on the back of the horse while being impaled for 6 days? Nobody asked the question. So, whatever. And then here we go. This is where I was getting to with that whole YouTube thing if I didn't come back for a whole year, right? Elrond asks, how are you here, or how did you come by Halbrand? And Galadriel responds with, how are you here? This is not normal conversation. Like, somebody asks you, where have you been, or whatever, and you respond with, well, where have you been? Like, brother, what are you talking about? I can't fathom how bad the writing is in this scene. Like, let's look at any other good TV show or good movie or book series. There would have been a conversation here that would have said, yeah, I did this, and we went through this stuff, and that's kind of how I ended up here. Elrond, what have you been up to? Apparently you've been up to a lot or whatever. Elrond would go, blah, 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 been here. And yeah, this is, where we're at. And you would, have each character reacting to the other person's story. No, we just get whatever the fuck this is, and it just, okay. And then Elrond and Galadriel, they go to talk privately because, yeah, I guess we need more bad dialogue. Elrond apologizes for sending her away, which, again, we've talked about in reviews in the past. Didn't really make any sense to send her away in the first place, but fine. Again, they try to, this scene reminds me a lot of Bronwyn and Arondir from episode 6, right before they're about to get attacked by the orcs. And what ends up being basically said here, or what basically ended up happening, is the two, like, there's some sort of emotion here, and we're supposed to be feeling it or whatever, getting a little teary-eyed, and I'm sitting here like, they still have no idea what happened to the other. Basically, Galadriel just says, yeah, I jumped out of a boat, and I was going to swim somewhere. Galadriel still has no idea what happened to Elrond, what he's been through. Galadriel doesn't tell about the whole, yeah, I went to Numenor, got a Numenorean army to go to Middle-earth. It wasn't much of an army. We killed some orcs, started a war, more or less, or was part of a war. These just are not, like, these are not, sorry, I keep saying human response. These are not elf responses. Like, these are robots talking to each other to advance the plot. I feel nothing. You want me to have some emotion for these two characters? Give them an actual character. Like, the reason Elrond and Durin works is because there's some chemistry between the actors. There's some actual emotion put into the build-up scenes, to their emotion scenes. There's actual payoffs. You can't force me to feel something for your dog shit writing. Okay, all right, let's move on. And as soon as I saw Celebrimbor and Halbrand in the same, area talking about forging, I was like, yep, all right, well, he's Sauron. And this is something that bothers me. So we talked about in this stream how, Anatar was supposed to be this immortal elf coming from Valinor, bringing gifts and stuff. It would make sense why people would fall for that, right? Let's put it into perspective of who Halbrand is saying he is in this scenario. He's saying that he is some sort of smithy that was in the Southlands. He's the heir to the Southlands, right? Why a, king slash heir to the throne would be a blacksmith, more or less, is a little peculiar, but I'm willing to overlook that. Could be like a Gendry situation where he's claiming he's a bastard or something. But Celebrimbor, right? The basic, or not the basic, the best like person of creating things, of a forger of all time. And this dude's coming in here and easily telling you how to fix all your problems. He's always right. He's telling you exactly what's going on. Do you not have any red flags going off in your head? Like, is there nothing in your head going, how do you know this? Like, this doesn't make any sense. I don't know. You guys are saying there's already leaks for season 2, which is mind-boggling to me. A very important question. If the 3 rings are made from exactly the same fused metal, why is Nenya silvery? Why? Maybe because the blade she gives is silver, and then they use the handle for the other 2. I don't know. I'm not making excuses for this show. It's just bad. So truth be told, I'd be surprised if the actors even return to the show for season 2 after seeing the reviews of season 1. Hey man, they're getting a nice contract. That's all I'm gonna say. They're getting nice money, so they'll probably stay. Agreed, Jesse. I agree. Good point. Wasn't Celebrimbor supposed to be a genius? He was the best. He was the top of the line. There should be nobody that's able to just come on in and be telling him what he should be doing differently, right? If that is the case, there's a major red flag going on, because this guy is not some regular blacksmith dude. There's something else here going on, whether he's more powerful, more wise than he's letting on. And Celebrimbor is just so naive, so stupid. Like, Celebrimbor is not stupid. Celebrimbor, like, when he sees that Sauron, what he starts doing, that's why he makes the Elven Rings without Sauron's, like, having any influence on them, right? It doesn't make any sense. Celebrimbor didn't even really come up with the rings. That was all Sauron. Sauron told him exactly how to do it. It was not like a partnership type thing that we saw in the book. It was more of just, Sauron told Celebrimbor to stop being a little bitch and just do what he said. Like, it doesn't make any sense to me. So, and then we have one of the better scenes that is then destroyed in this episode, is that Pharazôn, finally, we have some talk about death and, Tar Palantir and how he's probably going to die and how we're going to try to immortalize him and all these things. And this whole idea of immortality, it is the key theme of Numenor. It's just not being explained. It should have been explained in episode like 2 or 3, right? And it's a good scene because at least they're making some attempt, but it happened way too long, right? Way too long. And then we get Elendil's daughter's plot, and it's just stupid. She's drawing something of, like, Palantir's face and stuff. And then the king, like, it's even more... Okay, so the king, who's on his deathbed, right? He can't get up or anything. He just magically gets up, starts walking around, opens this door to go to the Palantir. I'm just like, what is going on? What the fuck? This is so contrived. And then we get to see, or we don't even get to see it, sorry. Elendil's daughter goes up the stairs, goes to the Palantir, and I'm just like, who cares? We already know what she's going to see. How many times do we need to get a scene of somebody looking at this stupid Palantir? Is this going to be the way that, oh, she's going to go back to the faithful because she sees what happens? Or is she just going to, I don't know. I don't care. I just don't care. That is true, Gryffindor. Celebrimbor is the true master of the rings. Yes. To a degree, yes. don't think I can keep watching next season, starting off trying to give the show a chance. But for me personally, it's agree, Jack, and I am in the same boat. I am not going to watch the next season or do reviews on it. Oh, I just realized another thing. The owners of the rings are probably going to be those three: Galadriel, Elrond, and Celebrimbor, rather than as in the book. Yeah, one of them should go to Gilgalad, which should be the ring that is probably going to go to Celebrimbor, but it'll probably not happen. So, in the books, the ring goes from Gilgalad, then to Círdan, and then that one goes to Gandalf. I'm pretty sure. Hold on, let me do a little quick search on the rings. I'm pretty sure that's how it goes. So I'm pretty sure they go to Elrond, Galadriel, and then the other one was with Gilgalad. And then that one's the one that eventually goes to Gandalf. Yep, and then that one was given later to Elrond. Okay. So yeah, it just goes to Elrond a little later on, but yeah. I agree, Hugo. I hated that. They didn't even finish their plot. They cut from the Palantir, LMO. They never wrapped Aaron. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I agree. I agree. Makes sense, Hugo. Makes sense. Okay, so we have the Farazan thing. Whatever, don't care. I mean, I started to care, and then they did something stupid with it, so don't care. And then we go to Gilgalad, and I like that Gilgalad is like questioning putting all the power onto a single person, because this is wise. Like, you're kind of basically doing what Sauron does in that regard, and I like that he questions that, right? But then my problem is then he's just like, yeah, we gotta leave now. That was a fading, but then we find out later on, yeah, they have like 3 months they can spend at least attempting it. Like, what? Why wouldn't you at least try? Whatever. Whatever. And then all of a sudden, Galadriel just feels like something's up. Like, she just sees Halbrand, you know, having some interaction with Celebrimbor, and it's just like, yeah, he's up to something. And I'm just like, this doesn't really feel earned. Like, at what point did Galadriel kind of figure this out? Like, there's been multiple occasions where she kind of really should have put this together, but she hasn't. So why all of a sudden is she putting it down, or she's now figuring it out now? Don't know. Kind of weird. I don't understand. The balls in these guys. Amazon has a lore page for their show. No, there's no way. There's no way. There's no way. Matthew, link it. Link it. The only wise thing Gilgalad has said in this season. Agreed. Hugo, that is the problem with introducing a stupid plot that doesn't make any sense. But yeah, it doesn't. I don't know. It's just stupid. So yeah, it's just, I don't know. And I just put in here because I got so sick and tired of watching this plot. I literally typed in, this plot is so contrived and it's just stupid and very rushed because they didn't develop it at all and wasted time on other plots like the Harfoots, like Numenor that went nowhere, Arondir's plot that also basically went nowhere. And I also mentioned again, Galadriel, all of a sudden worried about Halbrand doesn't really make any sense when we look at the whole idea of she's had multiple signs at this point and she hasn't questioned it at all. A little interesting. And then also, so this is what I think is really interesting. Halbrand, we know, is trying to manipulate Galadriel, but I thought this was a really funny scene. Right? It was a really funny scene. Is that Halbrand is talking about Galadriel like, oh, she always believed in you, and or you always believed in me, and you did all these things. And I'm sitting here like, I know he's trying to lie to her and stuff, but at the same time, like, Albrand, she's done the complete opposite. She's literally been trying to use you the entire time. Like, you are nothing to her until she realized she could use you to get the Numenorians to act. Like, I don't know. It was just really weird. I mean, there's supposed to be this tension between the two, and I just don't feel it at all. I'm just like, this is very rushed. Like, literally 5 minutes of screen time, and Galadriel's just flipped a switch. Like, you know, she's just flipped it. You know, it's not one of those things where it's like, this guy's my friend. He couldn't be this. No, no. And then, yeah, no, she just instantly flips to, yeah, he's the enemy. Oh my God. Let's click this link. Hold on. They actually have a Lord. Wow. 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 That's some big old balls they got. That's some massive, giant balls they have doing that. Wow. Wow, 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 wow. Okay. Doesn't, oh, okay. Wow. Yeah. Uh, Matthew, I don't even know how to respond to that. I just scrolled down. I'm just like, wow. That's actually amazing to me. But yeah, the elves are not supposed to be fading until like the fourth age, because the one thing that like keeps them from not really fading is because they have the powers of the rings, where things like Lothlorien, this is something Galadriel talks a lot about in her chat, or in like there's like a multiple chapters that are actually in Lorien, but where she's like, yeah, if you destroy the ring, or if either way, it's a bad situation for the elves, because if the ring is destroyed, it's presumed that the elven rings will lose their power, so they won't be able to preserve around them and all that. And that's kind of the problem. So elves are kind of worried, where it's like they're pretty much going to have to leave regardless. I was disappointed that Galadriel didn't accept Sauron's offer. Agreed. That would have been way better. Why not appeal to the Valar and all these? Jesse, there's no logic in this show. Okay, like we just can't. Yeah, Jack. Yeah. The stream is about to get heated. Oh, it's as we dive deeper into this episode, it's just gonna get worse. Yeah, it's just gonna get worse. So we're back to the stranger. And at this point of the stranger, right? And I just don't care about this plot, right? I know this is going nowhere. I know what's going to happen before it happens. I know Nori's going to show up, Gandalf's going to go all good, and nothing's going to happen, right? And my thing here is, why do the priests just believe Sauron is Sauron, or Gandalf is Sauron? Like, what makes them think he's Sauron? Is it just because he has power? Why do they think that someone cast down Sauron? Like, and then why would Sauron, if he was cast down, come back not knowing anything? I just don't understand. So they then introduce, they're from Rune. They're going to go there. Whatever. Fine. Whatever. Don't care. And again, I note, I am going to note this in every single scene that these priests are in. Are we going to learn any information about their powers? Like any. Like anything. A single thing. We don't. We just know they're from Rune. That's it. We know they're from Rune. They're either a priest of Melkor, Sauron. We don't know because they don't tell us. Whatever. And then, just like how the priests instantly found the stranger, or Gandalf, the Harfoots do too. And I'm just like, okay, fine. I guess there's a massive trail that's being let. I don't know. This is a good midpoint of the stream. If you have not taken a drink yet, make sure you guys are staying hydrated. Get yourself some good water, some Aquafina water if you have it. It is the best quality water. And yeah, I could not do these streams without this water. And this is not even sponsored, but this is my pitch I will send this one day to Aquafina, or who even owns Aquafina? Is it Pepsi or something? I don't know. I will send this to them when this channel has a larger community, and I will be like, see, even from, oh, by the way, thank you guys for 1,700 subscribers. So that was cool. Thank you guys. We hit that. I think that today. The last 2 or 3 videos have just popped off, so thank you guys for all the support on those. But yeah, I will look back and be like, I was already supporting your stuff for free. Okay. Stranger danger, yes. Thranduil is just fine with the kingdom without ever owning a ring. All the Avaria spent eternity in Middle Earth just fine. That's fair. What is longer, the ending of Return of the King or no? Dude, we're not there yet. We're not there yet, Jack. But when we get there, something is bothering my nose. I don't know what is going on. I'm just having I don't know if it's allergies or what. It better not be allergies because I'm going on a hike tomorrow before work, so I'm excited about that. Why would Sauron come from space? I don't know. As I said, Eric, the only reason why Eminem thinks yes, it's to full yes. Logic, I forgot, just doesn't exist in this show. I keep forgetting. Okay, but here's the problem. You're gonna drink some Diet Coke, Matthew. I respect it, but on the diet, I think on the diet spectrum, Matthew, I would say Diet Coke's like a middle of the pack. I'm kind of a fan of Diet Coke, but there's better options. Like Diet Wild Cherry Pepsi, top tier. Diet Mountain Dew, top tier. Diet I think it's Sunkissed, just orange soda, top tier. And then you have your good tier. There's A&W. Diet A&W is pretty solid. I think I'd probably maybe put Diet Coke and Diet Pepsi in that tier maybe. So, I don't know. I think you can do better, Matthew. The leak never said that the stranger is Gandalf. It just said he's a wizard, but the stranger said a quote that, yeah. My problem here is the stranger straight up quotes Gandalf. They quote him in Moria where he's always follow your nose or whatever because they're lost. They don't know where to go. I kind of forgot that they quoted Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings twice in that scene, right? They quote one where Nori doesn't know what direction he's supposed to go. I think it's a reference to the extended edition. I think this is an extended edition scene where Frodo's which way to Mordor, basically, and Gandalf's that way. It's the exact same setup, and then the exact same lines, basically, and I'm just what? I don't... Just make up your own shit, please. Actually, don't do that, because we saw you make up your own shit for the story of this show, and it went very badly, but make up your own dialogue, and have it actually be decent. Pepsi is better than Coke. Oh, wait, we gotta know. Coke or Pepsi? If we're just going off of Coke and Pepsi, not the brands, so how Coca-Cola is a company and Pepsi is a company where they own multiple different sodas, that's a different question. If we're just going Coke or Pepsi, I would say Coke. I think Coke is better than Pepsi. I think Pepsi has more sugar in it. We're gonna do a poll. We're gonna do a poll. Which one do you guys like better, Coke or Pepsi? Because this is a very interesting question. Coke or Pepsi? Answer that in the poll. Coke here. I agree with you, Gryffindor. I agree. Now, if we're doing the company, it becomes a far harder decision for me because I really like my Mountain Dew. I think Code Red's good. I don't actually drink actual regular soda much, just because of dieting purposes. But when I do, they are very good. And I would say Coke is more there's not really any flavor you can go wrong with, but they don't really have anything that's top tier for me. While as Pepsi has a lot of low tier, but high tier stuff. There's no real middle ground. So I don't know. That's a tough one. That's a tough one. Water is very good, Jesse. I drink a decent amount of water, but it's always either Aquafina or just best choice or something. Oh, also Pepsi has Aquafina, so that's Coke has Dasani. That's a big negative. Big negative. We have overwhelming Coke in the chat, so that's good. All right, so let's get back. Let's get back into it. We got a little bit more, and then we're gonna conclude the stream. And I will be very grateful that I'm done with this shit show. It's made my blood pressure go up. Probably, I don't actually know. I haven't had my blood pressure actually like done in a while. But the last time I did it, it was normal, so that's good. So the Harfoots then try to free the stranger, and I'm sitting here like, oh, is this cool? Is this gonna happen? What's gonna happen here? And apparently, again, it's shape-shifting. How this happens, no fucking idea. It happens. And then, this is what really bothered me, right? So, the old Harfoot gets basically a ring, right? A ring. Or not a ring. When I say a ring, a knife right here. Like, right here. He should be dead. He should just be dead. He shouldn't be moving around. I mean, we then see this old, and I'm sitting here like typing, like, because I'm seeing this dude do just stuff. He's walking around fine. He stabs another one of these like priests, and he's fine. And I'm sitting here like, okay, so I guess he's not going to die. I guess he's fine. And I was about ready to like say, oh yeah, just another like Bronwyn situation where people take injuries and it doesn't matter. Then he does die at the end of this, and I'm just like, what? Why is he dying now? He's been walking around and shit just fine. Did the adrenaline he just fell off a cliff? I don't know. I also wanted to say the fight scene was just fucking terrible. Like, I think this was maybe, no. Arendir's fight with like the bigger orc was the worst fight scene. Oh damn, there's actually a lot of bad fight scenes in this show. This is like third worst fight scene. Behind the Galadriel one. No, shit. 4. It's 4. There was the one with Galadriel and the troll was bad. The Galadriel with the Númenórean like soldiers was bad. And then the one with Arondir and the big orc. This is 4th worst. Gandalf and this priest thing, it was just like, what's even happening? Like, I don't care. Like, this is just terrible. Apparently, this priest is just kicking Gandalf's ass. By the way, I know you guys are saying it's not confirmed, and he's going to go up by some other name. I don't care. This is Gandalf. They've played with our emotions for too long. They've kept it a secret for too long. They keep dropping Gandalf quotes that this character would not know unless he's Gandalf. So, he's Gandalf now. I don't care, because I'm not going to watch season 2. So this is the extent of my Rings of Power time. So this is Gandalf. Okay. And this fight scene goes on. Whatever. It's just cringy and convoluted. I just don't care. It's just how the rest of the whole season's been with the Harfoots, where nothing matters. And then they started throwing rocks at priests. Like, good job. Great job. Great job. Whatever. But, yeah. So then I note specifically that this priest is using stronger magic than Gandalf in the Hobbit or Fellowship. Anyone want to explain? Like, I know Hugo has already said, right, that, you know, they're just doing it to do it, right, with no logic. And that's exactly correct. And then, like, Nori's about to die or something, and the stranger awakens. This actually happened before on what stuff I've been talking about, but it's like, I just don't care. There's no tension here. At this point, we've seen the old dude take a knife to the stomach and is fine. There's no tension in the scene at all. I know nobody's dying. Until someone does die, but, you know. So then, I wrote down, the stranger saves the day, and the priests say he is an Istari, one of the wizards, which is bullshit unless he is a blue wizard. He's probably not a blue wizard. He is Gandalf. And yeah. Which doesn't make any sense, as we've talked about already. Then the priests just die. They look like ring wraiths, which doesn't make any sense. And 2, they just die. We don't know what they were, really. We have no idea what their backstory is. We have no idea what their plan was. It was quite literally the worst way to conclude that arc you possibly could have done. There are more answers left with the Harfoots, like, conclusion to the story than were answered. That doesn't make any sense. That is quite literally the worst way to do storytelling. Jack, these are all valid questions that I have no idea. The Harfoots were filler. I drink only iced tea and occasional Dr. Pepper now. I used to drink Dr. Pepper a lot more, even in mixed drinks. I will say, okay, so this brings me to another point with Dr. Pepper. Dr. Pepper is a very underrated soda for me. I used to really not like Dr. Pepper really, and then about like my freshman year of college, I think Dr. Pepper is an S tier soda now. I think definitely a S tier. Also, I want to bring something up. Okay. So we've seen all of this talk about diversity and all these things and how they wanted to add diversity into Rings of Power. How is it, though, that the one area of Middle-earth that there would be a lot of diversity in, Rune, the East, it's the most white people you could possibly think. Like, it's just something I thought up, okay? And something that was even more confirmed to me in a video I watched today, because it doesn't make any sense. You're saying about putting diversity in, which is fine, as long as it makes more like sense with the story. But then the place where you could have diversity and it make a lot of sense just logically, they don't put any there, and they just put a bunch of white. I don't understand. Okay, so it would appear that Coke has won the poll. Yeah, so that kind of was weird to me. Old dude suddenly dies. Don't care. I would honestly rather all the Harfoots die. I also noted here, we've already seen that Gandalf can heal, right? He heals the tree or whatever and brings back all the fruit and stuff. Why not try and see if Gandalf could heal the old dude? Like, at least attempt it. Like, why not do a good old, like, who is it, Rey, that does it in The Rise of Skywalker, where she basically heals, what's it, Kylo? Why don't we see that? I don't understand. I don't know. So then we move back to Numenor not Numenor. We're on the ships with Elendil and the pals, and there was some good dialogue here from Elendil, kind of, again, as I've talked about before, stuff we should have been hearing about the faithful and all this stuff, and returning back to the old ways. We should have heard this long ago, but we haven't. Whatever. And I also noted here that a casual viewer would have no idea what the faithful even means, because we haven't talked about it at all. This is the first time it's being mentioned, and we're in episode 8. So I thought that was stupid. They didn't really explain it. They just brought it up like we're supposed to know what it means. Like, I know what it means, but a casual viewer, someone that doesn't know, how are they going to know? So I don't know. They arrive at Numenor, and I guess Palantir's dead. I don't know. He's on his bed looking like he's dead. Maybe he's dead. I don't know. Don't really care, to be completely honest. So then scene 8, we get back. There's an explosion type thing in Linden. They're struggling with trying to get the rings going. And this is where I'm going to go off script. We're going to just basically talk about the rest of the Galadriel plot as a whole. I'm going to kind of not look at my notes. Celebrimbor, you are continuously seeing that Halbrand knows everything more than you do, and there are no red flags going on. None. None. I don't know. And then Galadriel figures out, okay, so he's not, there's no record, right, of there being a king of the Southlands that would be an heir or anything like that. And it really begs the question, why didn't she do any of this research in Numenor? They would have had knowledge of that, you would think. But no, so whatever. And this is my next thing, right? So Galadriel doesn't know that Halbrand is Sauron. She does not come to that conclusion. She just knows that Halbrand isn't who he says he is. Why would you tell Galadriel you're even Sauron? Like, why not just tell her another lie? Tell her that you weren't actually the person you were said to be. You say you were some guy in the Southlands that was trying to make a name for himself, or that you were trying to be a king or something like that, but you weren't. You lied. You stole this crest from someone else, or whatever, and that's your story, right? Why would you tell her that you're Sauron? And better yet, why would Sauron help the elves live? So the only thing I can kind of come to the conclusion here is that, and this is not explained, none of this is even slightly hinted at, is that Sauron, the only reason he would want the elves to live on is for revenge, right? For the past war and the fall of Melkor and all that stuff. He would want revenge. He would want to enslave them. He would want to take revenge on them. He would want to destroy their forests, destroy their keeps. He wouldn't want it done to just them fading, right? So that, to me, would have been a good motivation for Sauron to help them. But there just isn't one given. We're just supposed to assume he just is doing it to do it, and it just doesn't, whatever. And then we get into this whole sequence where Sauron's in her mind, and again, he just basically says, yeah, Galadriel, you're hot, like, come marry me, and we'll just, yeah, we'll rule and do our thing, and yeah. And this, to me, is what really I think is amazing to me. Is that Galadriel says, right, the rings need to be untouched by Sauron and all these things. They're already touched by Sauron. He's helped them along every part of the way. He basically has made them for you. He basically handed you the design and said, just follow this little recipe. It's like, okay, for instance, it's like if you follow a hamburger helper recipe, did you really make the rings, or were you really just following the hamburger helpers? Like, you know, what? And then Sauron also knows that you made them specifically. You were doing them directly in front of him. It wasn't like you hid them from him. It was so dumb. It was so dumb. Okay, so let me look at chat. I agree, Hugo. I have no idea why he was on the raft. I have no idea. I have no idea why they made the biggest event of the entire series into one episode of about 20 minutes. Jesse, that's kind of what I maybe thought was like, maybe he's trying to just take dominion over the elves, basically. But I don't know. Orange Crush is so good, Matthew, by the way. Was Halbrand trying to reach Numenor in order to cause his destruction? Weird, since in this continuity, Numenor is isolated from Middle-earth. Yeah, this is what I don't really understand. Is that if Galadriel had not showed up and basically put on a performance of her life to help the Southlands, Sauron could have just as easily taken over like Middle-earth, and they would not have cared. So, but I agree with you, Jesse. Were you convinced by Halron's supposed superior knowledge? To me, it seemed that all he did was mutter a couple sentences that don't make actual sense to Celebrimbor. It seems as though Celebrimbor didn't know what he was doing. And yeah, I didn't really buy that Halbrand just had this superior knowledge of how these things work. It just felt like they didn't know how to make this plot happen, and they just put shit together. They had Sauron trying to redeem himself until Galadriel turns him down and turns him evil again. Agreed. Hamburger Helper, yes. I actually don't like Hamburger Helper, so I don't know why I used that reference. It's the first thing I'd think of. I was thinking of, like, where I work in the grocery store and, like, going down the aisle, what would I make? Wait, did you answer the one about Sauron's plans? What do you... Oh, hold on. What's Sauron's plan? Was he pretending to be good, or was he truly trying? Why did he help the elves make the rings? What was he gonna do if Galadriel hadn't talked? So, my thing here is, the way I'm seeing this is that Sauron based off the show, was trying to manipulate Galadriel because he realized how powerful she was, while she also is, she's described as being very beautiful, and the actress herself is, attractive. That he was trying to sway her over to his side, right? And then also, I was assuming he was trying to basically take dominion over the elves, basically enslave them and become their master, therefore taking revenge on the elves because of past things. That was how I took it. And then we just have, so basically, here we go. Basically, at this point, right, I had just lost my shit. I was just so done with the show. And Nori and the Stranger come back on. And this is the thing. Every time Gandalf speaks, it's basically them trying to reference the Fellowship of the Ring. So he's given this speech, and it's like his speech that he's talking to Frodo in the Shire or Moria, whichever you want to go off of, right? Where it's the whole speech about, Frodo's like, I wish the ring had never come to me, and, Gandalf starts his whole spiel. It's basically the wording of that, but just a little different to Nori. And I was like, dude, this is so stupid. Like, can you make your own dialogue? Right? It just, whatever. And then the old dude dies off screen. I was like, cool. Didn't need to see his death. Whatever. And then the plot. Okay, it's not the plot. I literally watched the screen time. The goodbye from Nori and the Harfoots is about 5 to 6 minutes of screen time. 5 to 6 minutes of this woman just saying goodbye or looking at people, and like, these people are going to leave you to die. The only people you should be caring about is your family. These people do not care about you. And then they make another awful callback to Gandalf telling Frodo which way to go to Fellowship, or which way to go to Mordor, like I've talked about in the past. And they just continue to continuously remind me of Fellowship. And I'm like, stop. Fellowship of the Ring is my favorite movie, and I do not want you putting Fellowship in your mouth. You do not deserve to speak the lines from a far superior series of movies or books. And yeah, I don't know. And then they just keep doing it, and I'm just like, whatever. So that scene ends, and we go back to Galadriel and the Forging of the Rings, and I just couldn't. I couldn't bother with this. I just couldn't. Well, Rings of Power and Hamburger Helper are relatable in that way. They both leave a bad taste in your mouth. Do they really? Because, like, or I know Rings of Power does, but I actually haven't had Hamburger Helper in at least, like, 5 to 6 years. I can't remember what it tastes like, but it probably does taste bad. It doesn't look good. I still don't know what I believe, whether Sauron was on a journey for redemption or was just manipulating people. Looking at his actions through the seasons, it seems he was trying to isolate himself. I agree, but I'm kind of going off of more of what he would do in the books, or the book, so I don't know. Hello, Carlos. I noticed that as well. That's when I turned it off. Yeah. So then, we get to Galadriel giving up the dagger to forge the Elven Rings, which is like, fine. Whatever gets through this ending, whatever. And then, so what I thought was interesting is that Sauron doesn't kill Galadriel or doesn't, like, silence her anyway. Like, why doesn't Sauron just tie up Galadriel, leave her in a closet, and then just do what he wants? Like, nobody else has any suspicion on Halbrand at all. After Galadriel denies his proposal, why doesn't he just slit her throat and dump her body in the water or something, or lock her in somewhere where she can't get out and then do it as plans? Doesn't make any sense. And then, so then she ends up in this water or whatever. Elrond pulls her out, and she leaves this whole, like, parchment, right, of the whole, I guess, line of the Southlands. And Elrond comes back after this paper or parchment has presumably been in the water for quite literally hours. And it's fine. He can probably read it. I'm just like, what? What is going on? I just don't understand certain things. Like, logic like that didn't make any sense. Also, so this is another thing that is a little bothersome, is that Mithril was put in one of the rings, not all of them. So that's a minor gripe that was just like, okay, I don't know why they did this. But yeah, so maybe that's why only Galadriel's is silver? I don't know. I don't know. Um, yeah, but I don't know. So then I had the problems of what happens with the other rings. So we have the lesser rings that are never talked about or never even mentioned in the show. We have the 9 that end up going to the men. We have the 7 that go to the dwarves. How are those going to come about? Like, is Celebrimbor going to make them on his own? Is Sauron going to make them? Is Sauron going to take another identity and help make those? I don't. Yeah, so they have some problems there. And I ended out with saying that the rings looked solid. And the last shot we get of Rings of Power Season 1 is Sauron kind of returning to Mordor and all of that. So, yeah, that was the last episode. I skipped over certain things because I just didn't feel like talking about them because they were just so irrelevant and kind of felt like I was talking about the same things over and over again. But yeah. And now the Psycho take their wheels. Amalva is apparently the Harfoot leader. Everyone should be left behind for dead before season 2 ends if it ever gets made. I really hope it doesn't get made. I really don't. And even if it does, it'll probably take 3 to 4 years anyway. So, well, at least that's nice. Was that vision of Finrod entirely an illusion? He talked about torching the darkness for the 3rd time and how would Sauron know he talked like that? So what's interesting is I thought the Finrod thing was like an allusion to Finrod actually is a Dar. That's kind of where I was taking that. But I don't know. We'll see how they go with that. Actually, we won't see how they go with that because I'm not going to be watching it. You guys can tell me, I guess, in chats. So I have one final little spiel I'm going to give. I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about what we're going to be doing in the future every week instead of Rings of Power, because now we're not doing Rings of Power anymore. There won't be a stream on Friday or Wednesday or whatever. So we're going to talk about what we're going to be doing on that and kind of the future a little bit of the channel. But this is my final like thoughts summarized into a paragraph. Well, actually, it's probably about 2 paragraphs. I just didn't separate it and all of that. So I'm going to drink and then we'll start. So, to start with, I am finally glad the season is over, and I want to say I will not be reviewing the show any longer in any future seasons. I not only hate the show for how it has treated Tolkien's work, it is also a terrible show from the writing to logical storytelling elements. To talk more about this episode in particular, it continues with the exact same issues as before. It ruins its own tension or is just illogical at times. The entire elf plot makes no sense in this episode and season as a whole. Alongside of that, the dialogue was even worse in the last couple episodes, with either constantly referencing the Peter Jackson trilogy or just having conversations that are not normal or make no sense. So talking about kind of like Elrond and Galadriel's conversations. What is truly amazing to me is that they do little things in this episode to piss off every Tolkien fan. If you are going to abandon the Anatar plot, fine. But then don't throw it in our faces by saying, oh yeah, Halbrand is the, gift giver or whatever. You obviously knew the plot line and then said, no, we're not doing that, fuck you, basically, is what they said, basically. And it just basically shows that they have no care for Tolkien's work and think they can write a better story than him or implement their own ideas into it that are not Tolkien at all. And I'm beyond pissed off and tired of this show acting like we are idiots, and is why I'm not giving this show any more of my time. I'm sorry if you wanted me to review this show in the future, but I genuinely can't watch them slander and disrespect something that means a lot to me. It's helped me through a lot of tough times in my life. Whether that being Tolkien's novels or the Jacksons movies, even The Hobbit. I wanted to make sure I marked The Hobbit in there because this show made The Hobbit look fantastic. I love this universe and everything he built and will not stand for the bullshit anymore. I want to end this review talking about how badly they butchered Sauron's story in the Second Age. I just don't understand how anyone's supposed to believe this garbage they are feeding us. Why would Sauron help the elves survive? He could do nothing and they would die. I've talked about kind of the counter argument to that, but again, that really wasn't established in the show at all. It could have been he was trying to get revenge on them. Could have been he wanted to control them or dominate them, but we're just not sure. he basically has nothing to do with the shaping of Mordor, apparently, which is what the One Ring is kind of used for. It helps kind of shape Mordor and kind of enhance its abilities. Not only does the story not function on its own, it fails to adapt anything even similar to what really happens in the Second Age. For all the crap we give D&D, they at least were able to adapt source material, unlike these morons. Finally, this season is over, and I may make one video talking about how this show is a failure and an insult to Tolkien, but I am not sure I genuinely don't even want to give the show any publicity after the stream. But that is my final thoughts on the show as a whole. Again, I don't know Hugo on the whole Adar thing, because again, he's not even mentioned in this episode, so we don't know. Have you watched the Cemetery? No, I have not. Or Toodle. We'll go with Toodle. Why did Halbrand even call himself gift giver? So they could wink at the audience and go, "Yeah, the gift. We know about that plot. We're so smart. We looked up that plot, but we didn't do it because fuck you guys. We didn't do the much better plot." That when he said that, the scene we're talking about right now, Hugo, it wasn't as bad as when they said Bran was going to become king in Game of Thrones, but it was like close. Hi Ethan Chow, you've caught me at kind of the end of the live stream, but hi Ethan, how are you? Yeah, so that's kind of the stream. Gonna be talking about in the future. We are going to probably instead getting back to doing the bracket. I still have that. I have that always open on my computer now just because it's a side thing. We're going to be going back to the Song of Ice and Fire streams on probably Fridays or Wednesdays. Probably going to be Fridays where, we're talking about either brackets or tier lists or doing like just a discussion. So those will be back to a Song of Ice and Fire. And the Monday streams will be just House of the Dragon. Also on those Friday streams, we'll be kind of doing House of the Dragon kind of previews as well. So it'll kind of be a mix on Fridays as well. Thank you, Hugo, for the kind words. And I appreciate somehow for you sticking through it and being able to talk and also filling in my Tolkien lore where I don't know it. So thank you for that. Just got off work. Sorry to miss the stream. No worries, Ethan. No worries. Glad you were able to catch the end of it. If you want to rewatch it, it's a lot of me complaining and being negative. But, I may have to give it a watch, Shoodle. I may have to give it a watch. But yeah, so that is kind of what I'm going to be doing in the future with streams. Probably still be doing 2 streams, just like how I talked about in, a little while ago. But yeah, so thank you guys for watching the Rings of Power stream. And this is the end of Rings of Power on the channel. You guys probably will not see these, like goblin avatars for Lord of the Rings unless I do Lord of the Rings videos, which is quite possible. I may do some more videos on that. Not sure though. Depends how things go. But thank you guys all for watching. Hope you guys have a great night, and I'll see you guys Monday with House of the Dragon. Saturday, tomorrow actually, we also have a Alicent video. I talked about her character development, and I know it's gonna be a divisive one because you guys agree and disagree with me on that. So yeah, I'll see you on that, guys, and bye, guys.